Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Legal Geeks. I'm Jessica Mederson, and as always, I'm joined by Josh Gilliland. Hi, Josh. How are you?
Wonderful, Jessica. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you too. And today we are here to discuss something that you've already covered very well in your epic piece on all things eDiscovery through the guise of the awesome, amazing, original Tron movie. It's obviously a fantastic piece, a lot of fun to read as an eDiscovery lawyer. It certainly makes eDiscovery more entertaining than I'm used to.
Thank you. I spent some time on that one.
I can tell. So tell me, just, summarizing your epic post, how is Tron an e-discovery case?
At its core, it's a story of Flynn trying to find files that proved he made a video game and that his nemesis Dillinger stole them and took credit for it. And that's how Dillinger was rapidly promoted and fired Flynn from Encom. That's at its core is looking for a smoking gun document, that email that shows I knew what I was doing, or the memo that said we knew the toys were defective and would explode with the children playing with them. Something that bad, and that's essentially a discovery. And so this is a 1982 movie that hit on
Wow.
all the basic e-discovery issues we deal with today.
Wow, that is truly amazing. Yet another example of sci-fi really seeing what's ahead of us in the future, eh?
Yeah, and they didn't realize what they were doing in 1982 on how it would impact what it is today. So it's really fun, to actually look at it through the e-discovery point of view.
I actually have more respect for the movie now. I'm going to have to go rewatch it again and say, you know what, you got to give these guys credit. They knew what they were doing.
You gotta get
Or they didn't, and they looked into it.
you gotta look past the spandex and actually see it for what it's worth. So there you do have to work through that.
All right. Well, what do you consider the greatest challenges for attorneys in e-discovery
First off,
if they're not actually having to run from Dillinger?
this is true. Education and overcoming fear. Lawyers frequently, despite the fact they're using smartphones and tablet PCs and they can watch a video on demand, they understand that they're afraid of e-discovery. And
Yeah.
and I don't know where the mental roadblock comes in. I don't know if it's a fear that they think they have to be a computer engineer, or it's just an unrational fear of, costs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where it's coming from, but they need to learn to overcome the fear, and the way that you overcome fear is through education.
Mm-hmm.
And so there has to be a greater willingness from watching webinars on eDiscovery to attending the conferences that teach, not just
Yeah.
the case law, but the tech, because you actually have to understand part of the technology from the preservation point of view and how that interacts with enacting litigation holds, how records management and litigation holds work together. So there are huge issues from the far left, and then moving to the right of the EDRM workflow and being able to analyze
Right.
this is what happens with processing, this is what we need to be looking at with document review, this is what early case assessment is, and they need to be able to look at all that and not freak out, and that just comes from learning. And so there's a huge education opportunity for lawyers across the country.
Wow, cool. Well, besides from these e-discovery things that you covered at length in your post, what other issues did Tron touch on that you saw?
It touched on early Stored Communication Act issues. And so this was pre-Stored Communication Act, because that's 1986 and the movie is 1982. So it did predate it, but issues with hacking and keeping things confidential and not
Yeah.
accessing other people's networks and taking information from it, which is what the Master Control Program was doing with, absorbing other programs and hacking into the Pentagon. And so you get into a whole bunch of, what is electronic communications, what is, stored information. And so it touches on, SCA issues. And that was,
Wow.
and so that was neat. And again, they didn't realize they were doing it because the Stored Communication Act had not been enacted yet. And there are several other issues that it touches on as well. And one is net neutrality, which,
How does it touch on net neutrality?
so when the grid was not a free system. The Master
No.
Control Program controlled all the towers that communicated with the users, the programmers, and their programs. And so when you control that access of information, you're basically controlling the internet and who can access what, who can communicate with what. And so part of the thrust of the story was Tron being able to communicate with Alan 1, his user in the real world, to get the disk, the information necessary to destroy the master control program. And so it's again, it's very, it's I don't want to use the word meek, but it's an undertone. So there's some wonderful pre-net neutrality issues that you have in being able to access information and being able to control the flow of it. So again, it's very creative in the way that just gently touches on those before there were actually issues, before there was legislation that controlled them.
I feel like the writers of Tron now need to be invited to like the next big techie conference to discuss all these issues. I'm like, how did they identify all these issues? I'm really impressed now.
It's brutally creative. And it's like, wow, you guys really good work. It's like,
I know. Is this accidental, or were they truly tech like geniuses?
I don't know. It's like I haven't researched them, but it's like, rock on, guys. Good work.
I now need to IMDb them and see what else they've done.
Exactly.
All right, so what technology? Obviously, Tron is notorious for having all kinds of crazy technology and lots of fun stuff in it. Is there any technology in the film that you think would actually be used someday, maybe someday soon, in commercial use?
Dillinger's desk, because when you look at his desk, it's a giant flat screen desk, that's touch screen, and he has information coming up on it. Granted, it's 1982 technology, so it's like that DOS language. So it's like
right.
3 windows, but you look at the keyboard, it's like, hey, is that touch screen, or is that just like built into to the base of it? But imagine basically having a giant iPad as a desk. And
wow.
and while the desk was,
Apple, are you listening?
While the desk was flat, that wouldn't be
yeah.
ergonomic for like a full day of work, and it would force people to keep their desks clean. So like that's another fringe benefit of this. But imagine being able to have a desk, and it's at a slight angle. I don't know if that's 10 degrees or 30, whatever, somewhere in there where it's going to be the best ergonomic view for you to be touching your desk and manipulating programs and files, and either doing doc review or drafting things with touchscreen capabilities. I think that'll be phenomenal, because
truly paper free too. I mean, especially if it were an angle, you couldn't have paper on it anyway. But think how nice that would be to truly be paper free.
You would take document review. If you had a giant, like literally, it's like a 4-foot wide monitor that's you're right on top of it, and you're being able to interact with things and do your doc review, and being able to zoom in and see things, or if you're doing word processing, or if you're working on a CAD file. I mean, the abilities that you would have with a monitor that big and combining it into the desk, I think would be pretty cool. So again, I don't know if anyone's actually tried that at any of the big tech companies. If somebody's like, well, we make these things anyway, let's see what she's got. I mean, I'm bored. You guys want to try this? Who's crazy? Like it could
That's
be
right.
like, go big, boys. I mean, it could be a lot of fun. So
lawyers and geeks everywhere are drooling right now at the thought of this desk.
I would love one. I mean,
I would too.
It would be you could do it so it's good for your back, so you're not hunched over, and you could have everything's looking like it's in 40-point font because everything would be so big. I think it'd be a really neat way to interact with things. And again, it has to be designed so everything's within your arm reach, but it would be a really neat way to to work on things.
Well, Apple and Samsung, I'm sure, are both hard at work at their own independent versions of this right now.
That's another podcast. That's another.
That is another podcast.
Yes.
In the meantime, I think everybody needs to go watch Tron again and appreciate that once you get past some of the schlocky, special effects and everything from the early 80s, which was a rough time for special effects, I think we all need to respect the geniuses behind this movie and everything that they saw, both just from a purely technical or technological standpoint, but also from an eDiscovery standpoint. We all need to go back and look at it and say, you know what? This is a classic. It was not respected in its own time, but maybe now it will get the respect it deserves.
One can hope. So thank you, Jessica. Stay geeky. America, stay geeky. And look forward to our next adventure.
Bye, Josh. Stay geeky.
Take care. Bye.